So this will be another Attack on Titan video. This is not a review of a season or an episode or a chapter. This is simply going to be my opinion on the first, the 145th king, or the first king of the walls, Karl Fritz. And kind of, my opinion of his, decision to, leave the mainland and take so many Eldians and go and, for all intents and purposes, hide and cower on Paradise until the world was ready to kill all of them. I do not have a high regard of this man. And in regards to that, so I have this, one of my little fake crowns that's going to represent, royalty. And then I also have this, which is kind of a, well, it's a belt, but it's like a chain to represent kind of the his will to prevent the rest of any others of royal blood who possess the founding titan that prevents them from actually doing anything. Well, part of it broke, but that's easily fixed. So it's kind of that concept of my opinion of this man. You may have a different opinion of the man. You may have a different opinion of why he did what he did, but this is my opinion of him, and I look at him more as a coward as opposed to a king. So, yeah. I'm going to wrap this around my representation of Zeke, who is Chewy, and my representation of, Historia, who is still Stuffle for the moment, because I cannot figure out a better thing to represent Historia. So, okay, the crown will stay for a little while, because I'm talking about royalty to a degree. Okay, so what we know about the first king of the walls, or the 145th king, Karl Fritz, is that, he came about as ruler and as the holder of the founding titan when it came to about 100 years or so ago, or probably a little more than 100 years ago, during the Titan Wars that were going on the mainland between the different factions that had each gathered different Titans. There was the Marley that had, gathered up a bunch of, the shifters, including the Tiber family. The story that is told to the public of Marley is that the Tiber family worked together with the hero Helios, or Helios, whichever way you want to refer to it, and worked with him in order to defeat Karl Fritz, and banish him to Paradise with a large number of Eldians. We, of course, find out from Willie Tiber during his well-productioned play, admittedly. As I admitted, at least it wasn't an interpretive dance performance. We, of course, learned that this is a lie. Helios did not actually exist. He was just a creation that Karl Fritz and the Tiber family made in order to have this hero that the Marleyan people could look to as, like, this man was able to conquer the Titans. This man was, he was able to overthrow this horrid king. And the Tiber family, of course, worked with them, hence why the Tiber family have such a high regard. Even though they're Eldians, they are treated, they're treated like Marleyans, or even better than Marleyans to a degree. And in that regard, we, of course, get where, Willie Tiber, his family, he says that the final words that Karl Fritz had to the Tiber family were, Eldians, Titans, they should never have existed in the first place. I will accept the responsibility of righting this wrong. Only until the day that this retribution comes, I want to live inside the walls. I want to enjoy this brief paradise, this world without conflict. And in regards to that, I look at that as more of, I just look at that as him being a coward. That's just my opinion of that. As I said, you may have a different opinion on that matter. You may think of, like, oh, he was, he wanted to preserve some form of the Eldians. He wanted to allow some of them to be able to survive. In all honesty, if he had wanted to actually allow them to survive, yeah, of course he had the threat of the rumbling of, like, oh, if you come and disturb my people, we will activate, these these millions of titans that we have in our walls, these giant, these colossal sized titans in our walls that will, then go and, trample everything and reduce the world to nothing but, nothing but Eldians, or just destroy everything. And, we we find out, of course, there are actual titans in the walls. So that part is technically not a lie. There are titans in these walls. Although I saw a calculation that it couldn't be millions of titans in the walls. It would be more along the lines of, a couple 100,000, maybe at the most, 7,500, 75, 750,000 to a million range, maybe. And yes, as we see what happens in the last several chapters of Attack on Titan, we see that they do cause a large amount of damage over the world. Eren, says when he's, talking to Armin in the last chapter, when he's explaining to him, why he did this, and he explains to the, to the rest of the Eldians the fact of, particularly his friends, this is a way of, preventing the rest of the world from coming after us for a while. It lets us catch up with technology, and it drops them back in technology. And I wiped out about 80% of the world population outside of Paradise. And yeah, admittedly, in my opinion, as I said, if Karl Fritz had actually, wanted to, protect his people, as opposed to just basically, as it's stated in the first episode, in Eren's mind, it was Eren or Armin that does it. I think it was Eren that does the thing of, humanity were cattle, in a cage waiting to be eaten for all intents and purposes by the Titans. And from their side of things, all the way up until they find out that, oh, Titans are people that have been turned into Titans, and oh, these people were actually innocent people that were sent here and turned into Titans over the last, 100 years by the Marleyans and such, and that these people, all it is just, it's what's it forces them to do this when they're Titans. To go and eat people. Now, I have watched a couple of other videos where they talk about, the first King's Will, or who the real enemy are. I've been watching a lot of Anime Uproar lately, and I've kind of watched some of their backlog of Attack on Titan videos, and they talk about that in some of the videos. So, go check out Anime Uproar. But in regards to, Karl Fritz, I just look at him as a complete and utter coward, because if he did want to protect his people, either A, it's called you don't isolate them from the rest of the world, or if you do, it's called you at least try to keep in contact with the few allies you have, like the Hizaru, like, the country of Hizaru, what ended up becoming the Asian clan on the island that are, Mikasa's ancestors. They were their, like, one ally in the world. And they didn't even keep in contact with them to at least keep an idea of what was going on in the world. If you wanted to protect your people and not be a complete and utter coward just waiting for them to come for, the Marleyans or whatever country got a hold of the ability to destroy Titans, to battle Titans without losing, as many, without losing so many other people, then you would have at least wanted to keep some contact with the outside world to keep your technology advancing, for in case they did show up, you would have other abilities to be able to fight them. I mean, yeah, they have the, the ODM gear, and, and then of course they developed the Thunder Spears and that type of stuff, which is very helpful. I'm actually, right now, I'm reading through the Attack on Titan Before the Fall, which, from one of the last bits that I just read, states that a good part of the story takes place about 50 years before what happens in Shiganshina with Eren and Armin and the Colossal Titan and everything, where that happens. So this takes place about, I don't remember exact dates for Attack on Titan, but it's like, it's like 50 to 60 or so years, kind of, that it spans over the course of the manga, or 65 to 50 to 60, 70 years, somewhere in that range, that it spans over the course of the manga, for Before the Fall. And I'm reading through that, so we kind of get to see, as they develop the ODM gear, as they develop more blades for how to be able to actually hurt the Titans, as they develop, how they can actually, hurt the Titans in regards to the fact of, we watch them experiment on a Titan where they're trying to figure out how, where the weak point is, in one of the flashback sequences. And, they find out, okay, doing nothing with the legs doesn't do anything, arms doesn't do anything, they just grow back. Blowing up part of the head kind of slowed down the regeneration, but it didn't destroy it. And then they're like, oh, you have to go for the nape of the neck. You have to, go specifically for that, and you cut out that part of it, or you destroy that part of the neck, then that destroys the Titan, and then it just vanishes. It basically just completely, evaporates. And so we get to see how they learn about that. And, I don't know exactly who the king is at this point in time. At that point in time, in the true king of the walls of the Reese family, I don't know exactly who the king is. It wouldn't be Yuri yet. It definitely wouldn't be Frida. I don't think it would be Rod or Yuri's father. I think it would be maybe like his predecessor or the predecessor before that. But, so it's whichever one is there. But of course, we know about the first king's will is that, he was a pacifist. He told the Tiber family of like, I'll just make it that, even, as long as it's a royal member, a member of royal blood that holds the founding Titan, they won't be able to go against you. They won't be able to go and attack the Titans. They won't be able to stop you. They won't be able to use their power to, turn the Titans back or activate the rumbling, because my pacifistic will prevent them from doing that. And, as has been pointed out in other videos, they're like, well, we have like, Rod and Yuri beg their father to, to stop the Titans so that way, people can go free. Cause, the Reese family know that they're not the only ones left on the planet. They're not the only humans left on Earth. But they're also like, well, we should, you can fix the Titans, you can stop the Titans, and then we can go out and be, explore further, give humanity more, more range, go see what else is out there. And so we have that moment. And then, of course, their father locks Rod up for what he keeps saying. And then, of course, when Yuri becomes, clearly Rod is not locked up for the rest of his life, or at least for, he obviously gets his, freedom at some point, because he has several children that are older than, 13 years old. Cause then Yuri takes over. Cause Frida is, I think, 13, 14 range or so when she takes on the founding Titan. And then, she had like an older brother. So, Rod wasn't locked up for his entire life. And then, then Yuri takes over as the founding Titan. And then, of course, he meets, Kenny Ackerman. And, the other thing that bothers me about that is, like, if the king really did want to protect his people, why on earth would he, like, banish and punish the Ackerman clan? If anything, he should have been having the Ackerman clan train, not be punished, not be banished, not be ostracized. He should have had them keep training and just say, okay, well, you can stay and still be like the guards of the royal family type of a thing, but you're not gonna, you have to pretend like, because he can't, because, the founding Titan can't alter the members of an Ackerman or the Asian clan, because, they're not Eldians. Admittedly, if they even, like, that, it seems to override, because, like, by logic of things, Levi's mother or Levi's father was probably an Eldian, but the Ackerman blood overrides that. But if there was, like, someone else of Asian descent on the island that was, like, half Asian, half Eldian, I don't know if that would then result in, because Mikasa is half Asian, half Ackerman, so she's automatically kind of, like, double immune to this or whatever. But, if there was, like, someone else on the island that was, like, half Asian, half Eldian, maybe that person would be immune via their Asian blood, or they would still be, still easily be able to be manipulated by the founding Titan by having their memories messed with, or even turned into a Titan because of their Eldian blood. I don't know. I don't know if that's been specifically stated by Isayama, but I know that when it comes to, I mentioned this in a different video, that when it came to royal blood and Ackerman blood, because, like, someone had asked, well, what if someone is born of, like, royal blood and Ackerman blood? And of course the best answer for this would have been, if, like, if, like, Historia's daughter was, like, Levi's daughter, or, like, Historia's child was Levi's child. you know, or if, you know, whatever, like if Frida had had a child with like a Kenny, which I don't think would have happened, but like with like Levi or something like that, um, then would that child, because of the Ackerman blood, be able to defy the first king's will? I'm going to do a whole video where I kind of talk about like, well, how would they have been able to break the first king's will? I am aware of the fact that the loop around for that is like you have someone of non-royal blood have the founding titan, and then have someone of royal blood then, you know, touch them and activate the power of the founding titan. I plan on doing a whole video where I talk about what could have, you know, like what are different ways to like break the, you know, the first king's will, break that vow that is, you know, forced upon the rest of the royal family if ever they take on the power of the founding titan, which we know transferred from, you know, Rod and Yuri's father to Yuri to Frida, and had Historia, you know, gone through with it and actually taken on the power of the founding titan and eaten Eren, devoured Eren, then, you know, she would have, you know, probably still had that same problem. Um, but I'm gonna do like a video where I talk about like, well, what would have been a different way around that beyond the fact of, you know, having someone of, you know, non-royal blood, Eren, have the founding titan inside of them, and then have someone with royal blood, aka either Historia, or in the case of what happens in the manga, Zeke, you know, touch Eren and, you know, go inside the paths and actually talk to Amir Fritz and actually, you know, make her, you know, do whatever it was that they wanted to do. Because we see Zeke kind of break the chain that was kind of put around him in the past. That's in the manga. They haven't gotten to that in the anime yet. That'll be in the final half of the final season. I don't know why they didn't just make it 2 seasons and just, you know, avoid the confusion, but whatever. And you know, so we get that moment, and like Zeke is able to break that, but he's not directly the one that's in control of, like, he's not the holder of the founding titan of royal blood. So I'm just going to do like a video where I talk about that. But back to my opinion on the first king. If he honestly wanted to protect his people, he would have just, you know, had like, you know, the Ackerman clan actually, you know, stay within their role of protecting the royal family, of protecting, you know, the Reese family, and then actually have them be in charge of training a bunch of these other scouts. You know, still have the scouts going out, actually train the scouts better in how they can defeat the titans, don't hide that information from them, you know, work on developing more things that can, you know, that can cause damage to a titan, like develop the thunder spears earlier. You know, it may have still taken a little while to develop the omnidirectional gear that they that we see kind of, that I'm, you know, kind of watching be developed in the you know, before the fall, with different things like that. Stop people, you know, stop trying to prevent people from knowing about the outside world. Don't hide those books away, like the book that like Armin has from his parents. Don't stop people from trying to leave the island. Like, you know, they killed Armin's parents simply because of the fact that they made a hot air balloon and they wanted to leave. They killed, you know, Ervin's teacher, his father, because of the fact that he thought that maybe there were other people beyond the walls. And you know, actually teach people on the island that, oh, hey, you know, there's other stuff out there besides titans. There's other people out there. There's this people out there. There's this nation out there called Marley that we were in this giant war with, and they have a bunch of these other titans, and like titans are actually people that can turn into titans. And you know, like the founding titan, like the king could have honestly just, like, any time that, like, I maybe understand like moving to the island a little bit, but like in all honesty, he should have, you know, this island is quite a bit bigger than what we see, you know, when they're riding towards the ocean, and then when we see maps of the island of Paradise, which has had, like, I think real world comparisons to it, looks like it's like Madagascar, and then like where Marley is looks like Africa. I think that was just from one of the things that I saw. But you know, we kind of see how small the wall area is compared to what else is on the island, and they could have, you know, expanded more there, and instead of having it be like 3 walls around the island, again named after, you know, Emir Fritz's 3 daughters, you know, Maria, Rose, and Sheena. Instead of it being named after them, I mean, he could have still had like sections of the wall be named after them, as opposed to these three things that literally divided society between, all the wealthy ones inside of Roshina instead of Walshina, and then like the slightly better off, or the slightly, less off, but still better, than the people that are all in the giant farming communities inside Wall Rose, and then, Wall Maria. Um, or whichever way it is around for those two. Um, but we of course have that whole other rest of the island that they could have spread to, more resources that they could have used on the island, brought other Eldians in to prevent these other ones from being, put in the internment zones, like what happens with Liberia and like other internment zones around the world for the Eldians. And, make it that they could be brought to, bring them to Eldia, bring them to Paradise, and then actually keep like patrols going around the frickin' island to stop the Marleyans or other countries from bringing in other people and then turning them into Titans with the serum, and then dropping them on Paradise, and then having them be there to, attack the people on Paradise. If the king honestly wanted to protect his people, he could have done a much better job of that. I understand maybe still building like the colossal titans into the walls and having them be set to do a rumbling at some point in time. If they actually came to attack Paradise, but yeah, it's a deterrent, but it's also I don't want to have to deal with this problem. I'm gonna go hide, and I've read, I've heard some other theories about the fact of, oh, well, he wanted to protect at least some form of his people. He wanted to do that. He actually was planning on doing the, rumbling at some point, or he was, trying to keep in contact with the Tybers outside or whatever. And then, the Tybers were going to do like what Willie had done in the first place, where, he was going to, reveal to the rest of the world that, oh no, we can go and attack Paradise. It's fine. As what tricked the rest of the world into attacking Paradise. One island, even if they do have the omnidirectional gear and the attack titan and the colossal titan and such, and even having the founding titan inside of Eren, which can really only be activated when he's touched by someone of royal blood, which at the time frame of the story is either Historia or Zeke. If they could find a way to turn the people that have been turned into Titans back into humans without actually having to, consume a shifter, without actually having to, turn them back into a regular human, without having them consume a shifter, then that would have been a very good thing to do. If they'd been working on how to do that, actually, I have a feeling that Hanji would have been able to find a way to do that if she was given better, more modern scientific equipment and the ability to kind of experiment on that she could have found a way to turn them back, or combine that with whatever other knowledge that they still had, combine that with the scientists from Hizuru, if they kept in contact with them, as opposed to just oh, your prince is going to come live here, and then because he's friends with Karl Fritz, and then he's going to get lost, and then his granddaughter, great granddaughter, or whatever it was that Mikasa is going to then pop up later on and be an Ackerman and blah 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 blah, and we all know what happens with Mikasa, and kept in touch with the outside world, even if it is just with Hizuru. Maybe Hizuru can hide the fact that they're still in contact with Eldia and still maybe try to make, deals with other nations, maybe try to find other nations that have been, war ravaged by the Marleyans, or other people like the anti-Marleyan volunteers, Yelena and Anyan Capone and, other ones like that willingly want to help the Eldians. Maybe not as far down the road as a zealot as, Yelena is. But more like Anyan Capone, who wants to, who understands the fact that the world needs more people than just, all these different types of people. And, the concept of, you shouldn't be punished for what your ancestors did. The sins of the father do not transfer to the sins of the child, or the mother to the child, or whatever. It doesn't transfer that way. Just because Just because like your father was a murderer, that doesn't mean that you're going to become a murderer or that you should be punished for what your father did. You know, uh, I know that in California and in New York, there's various laws in regards to like the children of either celebrities or public figures where, paparazzi cannot go after the child. Paparazzi cannot try to get, images of the child without the parents' permission, or different things like that, because that is going after a child who has not chosen the public life and using that child against its will to a degree. um I know that there's some other places around the world that probably have similar things to that type of a law in regards to celebrities and public figures and their children. um you know it's one thing if the child gets to be old enough and the child can choose to be out in the public and everything, like if the child reaches 16, 17, 18 and chooses to want to be out there in the public and be part of their parents career, or have their own career, or if they're like their parents a politician, they want to be part of going into that political life and they go into that realm, then that's fine. But don't transfer the fact of, oh, I have permission to take pictures of the parent, to, oh, I'm going to get pictures of the whole family without like the parents' permission, or different things like that. I know there are still paparazzi that break those rules because they want to get a good picture and then get published and then get money. I understand that they have to make a living too, but don't go after a child just because their parent is famous. That's not fair to the child. And it's like, don't blame the kid, in the case of Attack on Titan, don't blame the Eldians for just what some of them have done, because most of them were just normal people. Most of them just wanted to live their lives, they have all the like the all the horrible stories that they say that the Eldians had done in regards to like what the Marleyans say and what the rest of the world says about they would burn villages and trample people and wiped out whole bloodlines and would force other people to have their children and did all this horrible stuff. And then there's the other side of it for what the Eldians say of Emir Fritz built roads and bridges and brought culture, and she was this goddess type figure type thing, and that that her family, her daughters and such were these wonderful people, and that they just continued on down the line. It's in the middle. It's like with any history, it's history is written by the winners. It's for the Marleyans. They wrote it down that the Eldians were nothing but scum, that Amir Fritz was a demon, or this demon that made a deal with the devil or whatever. And then the Eldians wanted to raise her up because she was their hope. Which is why so much hope was put on Emir from the Survey Corps. When she was a child, she was put into this cult and said, oh, she has blood of the king. Her name is Emir. She has blood of the king. She can deliver us to to redemption type of a thing. It gave hope to the people, and that's why Emir was okay with it. Gave her a warm place to sleep. It gave her food. It gave her clothes. And it let her make other people happy. And then she's unfortunately the one that gets the main punishment for that, in regards to she still gets, beaten and tortured and turned into a Titan and everything. And she just, that's what happens with her. And then, they had this hope for like, she has the blood of the king. And then, Aaron's father, Grisha had, him and Dina had this idea of, with the rest of the revolutionaries, oh, well, we'll get Zeke to go and become a warrior, and then he can go to Paradise, and then he can get a hold of, the founding Titan, and then we'll have the power of the founding Titan. I don't know if they 100% knew about the first king's will in that regard, to the fact of anyone of royal blood cannot defy this king. There has to be some way of breaking that stupid rule that doesn't involve it being the founding Titan being possessed by someone who's not royal blood. But I just as I said, the first king was a coward. He was a chicken. He was, he basically, for all intents and purposes, was like, yeah, no, I agree with the rest of the world. My people did horrible things, and we should be punished, even though none of us that were alive now had done any of these horrible things. And, you know, I don't blame people who are pacifist. I don't like war. I don't like fighting myself. Pacifism is not a bad thing. As I've mentioned this in some of the Digimon videos, I think I mentioned this with Mimi in her video, where she didn't like fighting and everything. And in the original season of Digimon, at one point toward the end of the season, when they're dealing with the Dark Masters, she's seen so many of their friends get destroyed, deleted or destroyed, or atomized, whatever you want to call it. And even though they know that they can come back, it still hurts because they're not going to be exactly the same. And Mimi just can't take it anymore. She can't take the death anymore, the destruction, the loss anymore, and she just doesn't want to fight anymore. And I understand where she's coming from with that. I don't blame her for that. I don't blame her for wanting to, to not have to deal with that anymore. But Mimi comes out of it. Mimi still goes and she still fights in the end. She still helps her friends. And then, Karl Fritz was just nothing but a coward. I think it was his, the original, King Fritz, who was, Emir Fritz's husband is not the correct word. Enslaver is a better word. Enslaver and kind of rapist, better word. And he, he's the one that abused her power. He's the one that abused the fact that she had this, this slave mentality beat into her, and that he used her power in order to start this conquering, and then he made his daughters do the same thing, and then probably had certain ones in charge. It's like, oh, I want my same people to have, I have these daughters from Emir, but then I also have maybe like these other children from like this other bride or concubine or consort or whatever you want to call them, and they can be the ones that are actually in charge, and then they'll order the three princesses around, and then they just eventually it was just they were raised to no, we conquer, but it was somewhere in the middle between, no, we're not going to do everything, we're not going to completely wipe out everybody, but we need to survive. It's somewhere in the middle there. And Karl Fritz, the 145th king, he kind of went the complete opposite way. He's like, no, I don't want to do this, but we should still be blamed for everything that our ancestors did. For everything that Emir Fritz did when she was forced to do it. Because he had those memories. He had the memories going back of seeing what all these past kings had done. He knew that that a large amount of probably what the Marleyans said or what the rest of the world said was false. That no, the Eldians did not go and wipe out so many bloodlines, did not do all the horrible things. But he still thought that they should be punished. As people have said, history is written by the winners. The Eldians want to raise Emir Fritz up as a goddess, as this wonderful deity that saved their people. And then, of course, the Marleyans and the rest of the world just want to see the Eldians as nothing but demons, as devils, as trash, as, things that can be manipulated into being weapons. And then when they're no longer useful, then we'll just get rid of them. And then of course we have Zeke and his idea of, well, let's do the euthanation idea, where it's, we just make it that Eldians are no longer, fertile, that they can't breed anymore, and that they can't have any more children, so that way the current generation of Eldians are the final ones that'll be born, and then it'll just eventually we'll just all die out. I'm going to die anyway in a couple, in like less than a year. Why not just make it that everyone's going to die out? I know that Armin, in when they're talking in the Way of the Past, is able to help Zeke understand that, no, that's not the right idea, that life is about small things. And another weird comparison, I already compared pacifism to Mimi and Digimon, so let's go with this comparison as well. I watched Soul, the Pixar movie from Disney for the first time in the past couple of weeks. I enjoyed it. Part of one of the things that they deal with in the movie is that you have to have, in order to, have your soul fully be alive, is you have to have this spark. And, you know, they go through the whole movie. The main character, who's the jazz musician, he goes through the whole movie, thinking that, like, oh, your spark is your purpose in life. His spark, he thought, was, music was, going to be his purpose. And then we find out, by the end of the movie, that it's not, the spark is not your purpose. The spark is just something that, gets you to the point where now your soul is ready to go to the next, to go and become human, to go into a body and live. It's not that, oh, yeah, this is going to be your passion. It's not like, oh, music was your spark, or like they show archery and they show baking or art or science or whatever. Like, that's not, like, that might be your spark, but that's not going to be the thing that you like do for the rest of your life. you know the other character that's in it, that's like the soul that he's trying to help, slash make a deal with. I'll go into the exact plot of the movie at some point when I end up doing like all the Pixar movies. But like, he makes this comment to, he's trying to, he figures out that your spark is not your purpose. Your spark is what started this. It's not like your spark, like, oh, archery was your spark. That doesn't mean you're going to go and become like a world-class archer. It's just, life is about little things. Life is about enjoying what's going on in front of you at the moment, enjoying spending time with your family or your friends, or, enjoying your food, or just relaxing, or yes, it is music, or yes, it is whatever your passion is, but it's not that one thing. And Zeke kind of has to figure that out, and Armin helps him figure that out, which is helpful, because Armin is very, very smart. And, so it's, long story short, and I went off on about 4 or 5 tangents in there, and I apologize. But, if Karl Fritz had honestly wanted to protect his people, he wouldn't have just isolated them on the island with no connection to the outside world whatsoever. He would have wanted to keep in contact with at least Hizuru, with keeping up with the different technology that was being developed, with using the resources on the island combined with what Hizuru had in order to help develop better technology, maybe develop the omnidirectional gear sooner, maybe set up a better, guard system around, around, the walls, actually maybe like put the Colossal Titans most of the way around the walls, around the outside of the actual island, as opposed to only having them be, oh, well, we're just gonna have them be only around this small portion of the island, because then the Marleyans can drop off other Titans and then they'll come here and eventually just come here and try to kill all of us. No, you don't do that. And then, of course, you use your founding Titan power to find a way to maybe turn the rest of those that have been turned into Titans, turn them back. And such, so that way they're not being punished anymore. So that's what I have for that. The king was a coward. He was a coward a la chicken. Chicken a la king. And that's just my opinion on the matter. If you have a different opinion on the first King of the Walls, of Karl Fritz, of, the 145th King, whichever you want to refer to him as, that's fine. You are more than entitled to have your opinion of him. I'm not going to say that your opinion's wrong. This is just my opinion of the man. And that, my other, as I said, I have an idea for, like, what would have been a good way that they could have broken, could one of royal blood who actually possessed the founding Titan, would there have been a way for them to have a strong enough will to break that, the first king's will, to break that curse, quote unquote, that, that chain that prevents them from using the founding Titan to actually protect their people, as opposed to just manipulating their memories. Okay, so that's what I got for that. I thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed my Attack on Titan that ended up talking about Digimon and then Pixar, because my brain. Um, so I thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a nice rest of your day. Bye. Peace was all he wanted, but if Marley grew strong and came to take the founding Titan or his life, he would accept it. He believed the sins of the Eldians were so grave they could never be atoned for. However, until that day of retribution, let me savor a brief paradise, free of conflict within the walls. That is all I ask of you.